In 1974, the first tabletop role-playing game was created. Since then, people from all around have gathered to play. Join me as we talk with RPG enthusiasts while they share their best, worst, and favorite moments. This is You Had to Be There.
Hey everyone, welcome to You Had to Be There, a D&D storytelling podcast. Wow, I've been busy. It's good to be, I haven't been live in a while. It's good to be back. I've been on the road doing a ton of stand-up, and it's been crazy. But I'm back at it, talking with someone that I actually got to do his show on. I'm sitting here with Julian from the Everyday Superhero Podcast, but it's much more than that. You have like a network, kind of conglomerate. I don't know what the word is, but you have why don't you tell everyone, because you have this I shouldn't say weird in a good way, this like combination of like tabletop gaming and health and fitness and mental wellness and cerebral thinking, and I'm into that.
It is, I think conglomerate's the right word.
Cool.
The only problem with this is that it's not a conglomerate that like pays overhead. It exists as a bunch of different hats that I wear.
Yeah.
It stems, the full name is Everyday Superhero Headquarters.
Right.
Everyday Superhero is the term I use to describe the colorful feelings we have to go through when we're battling our mental hurdles.
Right.
Because our brain can't tell the difference between Joker chasing us and our boss yelling at us. So it makes, even though we're not literally being chased by Joker or the crowbar, it makes that fear just as valid. And I am a giant nerd.
Yeah.
And I'm not, it's not so much, and it's taken a while to realize it's not so much that I'm a nerd and I present stuff specifically in a nerdy fashion, which I do sometimes. It's more that because I'm a giant nerd, I can speak comfortably in language that other nerd type folk can like relate to. So there's less trust that needs to be built up before we get to the point of what do you do with yourself today to make yourself healthy?
Right.
And I'm also a failed comedian and storyteller, and I have not failed at storytelling. I did fail at comedy. And I'm a big believer in the things that you learn from and then bring you joy, being enveloped in your purpose. So I mix my love of tabletop games and performing in with my desire to help people feel good and develop comfort with themselves in a manner that is uniquely mine. And that's the only way to make it uniquely mine. And that's what the conglomerate is.
Nice.
And the podcast is the long form content version of that.
Yeah, and I had a blast doing it. What came first? Was it the health and wellness stuff for you, or were you a tabletop guy first?
Man. So I was a nerd first. But my nerddom has never been defined by a fandom. My nerddom is from a sense of exuberance with shiny new objects that I get over compelled to participate with. Yeah. And the compulsion to recreate those sensations for myself.
Right.
So everything that I am nerdy about, whether it seems to be a nerdy topic or not, comes from a sense of it stimulated me to have excitement. And I went and did some real life version of it to better myself so that I can feel that whenever I want. That kind of has drawn my entire development really from child to adult. There's the times in like the late teens, early 20s when like I had to fight against it because everyone was telling me not to do that anymore. But
wait, what were they telling you not to do?
Like there's the period of time like after high school and college when like the world's like you're an adult now. You
Right.
behave a certain
Yeah.
way. And I didn't so much actively rebel against it as realized my interests lie in other things.
Right.
So I had a lot of, oh, bless your heart, or you'll figure it out at some point, when I didn't feel like I wasn't not figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
But so that whole concept of how I relate to the world developed my personal need to stay active.
Yeah.
Like, even though I was active in sports, I was a practice player. I loved the obsession of like taking batting practice or shooting 1,000 shots. It was reading Batman comics that got me in the gym,
Right.
and training in martial arts and that kind of stuff, or Power Rangers or Ninja Turtles or whatever. The training thing comes from a deep innate desire to help people.
Sure.
Part of it comes from a sense of empathy that I don't know where it comes from, and something I take for granted that I forget half the time other people don't always have, which is the biggest reason I have trouble charging for personal training, because most of personal training is empathetic and understanding where someone's coming from so that they can adhere to a program that's good for them.
That makes sense. I mean, don't forget to know your worth, though.
100%.
I'm
yeah.
That's one thing that has hindered me in a lot of things, and like stand-up included, is I'm just like, wow, I went on stage and I made a bunch of people laugh. This was great. And then I forget, like, oh, that's right, I'm trying to make a living out of this. I need to make sure I get paid.
Yeah, 100%. I gotta say, it was easier to justify when I had a studio,
right.
because I had overhead and I could point to the lights. You want those to stay on?
Right.
I've definitely learned to understand the value of my individual attention and time, which is the difference. Because my podcast covers similar approaches and stuff in a grand scale, it's possible for someone to be inspired by it enough to make their own changes without ever paying me, which is great. But right. I'm also speaking generally in a manner that doesn't take more time. The closer you are to just having my time and the more time that one-on-one focus is, the more expensive that becomes, because it's taking away from helping other people at the same time.
Right. That's great. I do like the growing aspect, and I remember from our conversation is that you had like your studio where you kind of had these various games and exercises that related to tabletop things, and that's fun.
Yeah, Mission Quest.
Yeah,
and
Mission Quest.
It's an online subscription.
Yeah, it's an online thing now, but you had that studio. Very cool. Definitely, I'll grab all those links for the end of this. What were your early days of tabletop gaming like? Like, what was your first character? I want to know about your characters, because you seem like a very charismatic guy. So.
Yep. So my tabletop gaming started after I was a personal trainer, which was your first question. And I never actually answered. And then before opening my personal training studio. So I was doing one-on-one training and renting space out of other gyms. So I worked for myself still, but I wasn't like paying the rent on the studio. And I was already called Everyday Superhero Training, because it was personal training, and it was called that because I was a giant nerd. So not so much that my clientele was. And I noticed that the people that get the most out of working with me, where like you can, if you adhere to a program, you'll see results. And the reason you adhere to a program can be anything from the trusting the person on how they look to a conversation that like makes you feel safe. And that version of stuff was tending to be other nerdy people. And a bunch of them were playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Cool.
And so we were already having nerdy conversations about stuff. And I never avoided Dungeons and Dragons. I was a nerd that grew up with a separation between the people I enjoyed and the things I did. So I was highly sociable, but like my teammates were never my friends. The video game club members were never my friends. Like they were the people I need to do the thing I want to do. And then there were people that I enjoy just like vibing with, which is why like my favorite thing in the world is just like sitting with a beer at a bar talking endlessly. And that whole process led to my partner Lydia, who I think popped in chat.
Yes, I was actually gonna say Lydia Nerdverse. Oh, that's your partner?
Yeah, that's my partner.
Oh, nice to meet you, Lydia. Hello.
She started listening to Critical Role because our clients were listening to Critical Role, and it allowed an extra beat of common ground to talk with while they're suffering. And then she got hooked on Critical Role as a storyteller and someone who trained in performing separately. Yeah. And then we started building the classes that were like more thematic. And then we're like, we should probably like try this if we're like crossing this bridge. Right. And then we did. And then we looked back. So I was north of 30 the first time I tried D&D.
Yeah, I was 29. So nice. I'm with you. Yeah.
And it was a, why have I not been doing this already?
Yeah, which, same.
In hindsight, I understand why, but like, because it's not something that again, I had a number of interests and they all took up time. So it's not like I was avoiding specifically D&D. It was I piled up habits of like things I already enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
And this one just like burst through like a Kool-Aid man on the wall of my enjoyment. Yeah. And I went, oh, this covers like 5 separate things that I'm doing over here in the same amount of time. Yeah. So let's zero in on this. Yeah. And yeah.
Bandwidth is a real thing. You got to be careful with that.
Yeah.
Because that's been the story of my life is you get into a ton of things, get excited about them, then take a long, hard look at what I'm doing and be like, oh my God, I can't keep up all these things. One of you has to go. And, it gets very tough. But I'm with you. I mean, separating that, I always had like nerdy friends too. And like it worked. And I liked games. I was never big into watching things. I'm a doer. I like to do things.
Yeah.
So I never went, like, I don't watch anime. I will watch it if it's on and it's fun. It's cool. Yeah, I like fight stuff. Gaming, I always loved games, but I didn't grow up with video games. So I always associate video games with going to a friend's house and playing video games.
Yeah.
Then I finally got my own and I was sitting at home. I'm like, this isn't as much fun. I like being with people. It's a different thing.
I miss couch co-op.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm still a couch co-op guy. I don't even own a PlayStation or Xbox. I have a Switch because I'm like, you want to play with me? Get the hell over here. Mm-hmm. So when I discovered D&D, I was like, this is everything that I've ever wanted in a game. We have the combat fight stuff. We have social interactions. We have a story, but all of my friends are in the story to find the thing. Because I'm dumb when it comes to like long-form open-world games because I will walk past the most important thing you need, and then I'll struggle for hours and realize that I missed it, and have to double back. So it's always good to have someone else like, shouldn't we check that chest? I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. We should check that thing. Who was your first character? So they brought you in?
Yep.
And what did they do?
We did not actually play with them to start. We found another client / member / friend, which is a common trend, who was also a giant nerd, who had also never played, but also wanted to. And so me and my partner and her partner were like, that's 4 people. Now all we need now is a DM.
Yeah.
So we found a DM that was like, I'll help. And then, long story short, he was weird, but also like a really good GM. So we had a really good experience. The thing that made him good was that he managed to provide the style of playing we thought we were looking for without us knowing it. Right. He was heavy. It was a homebrew world. It was heavily thematic. It was. He taught us to pay attention to the descriptions in our minds, not the numbers on the page, and then he would tell us when to look at the page and to trust that. So rather than being like, how many hit points does it look like they have? He described like how the monster looked viscerally, and it taught us to like see the world as we're playing it.
Yeah. And was this
and
this was in person, right? This was
this is all in person. This is pre the world exploding.
Right. Yeah.
And that was that hooked us. And as storytellers, as the idea that we're crafting a story with either a story arc for a thing we've a specific player, or as a DM, the world that the story takes place, or the narrative, and your audience is also your cast members. So you're cheering each other on with whoops and woes, and you're also like having serious emotional arcs with these people, and you're also like fighting back to back and side by side. Like all of that was so much fun. And my first character was a gnome rogue.
Cool.
That was, and then common themes for how the rest of my games are played, was built to allow myself to be inquisitive of the world without it being game breaking or rude or selfish. So and I've done this a number of times. Whenever I play a new system, I'll play a high dex, high wisdom, low intelligence. So like he's able. He's not learned much over his life. He's been sheltered or whatever, and then through the but he's also like he can dodge and duck, dive, and weave. And I think my original character, his name was Sir Fancy Pants a Lot, and was his name
Sir Fancy Pants a Lot?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, and he was a middle-aged gnome.
Okay.
Who had lived at home with his parents, just in the village, his whole life, and read about these amazing adventures and learned everything he knew about being an adventurer from fiction.
Oh, that's funny.
And then and then his parents were like, "You got to do something. Like this is great, but your imagination is really strong, and you're kind of like in our way. So do something." And he went, "Fine, I'll be an adventurer." He didn't like have weapons or training or anything, and like the first mission, he's like jumping from like the crow's nest of like a pirate ship, and like trying to grab a rope, and like he was trying to use the sword to slide down like the sail and land in like a 3-point stance, and all of it happens by accident. And he claims it's a purpose. Like it's and that was it allowed me to like be silly while being unconfident of what I was doing.
Now I'm looking at the chat here, and Lydia says you jumped off a ship mass and died in the first session.
Yeah, that's what I was explaining. So
okay.
My first move in initiative, we're on an airship, and it's having like fire chameleon creatures on it that are invading, and I, for whatever reason, climbed up to the top of the sails, and then jumped off to grab a rope and swing down and like land in a bunch of people and like fight people, and I rolled horribly on the jump. So I like instead of grabbing the rope, I hit like the sail and started tumbling and bounced off something else and took damage like immensely on the way down, and then saved the roll to land in the 3-point stance, bloodied and beaten. And then the next turn was the fire chameleon's turn, and they stabbed me. And so the whole, like everyone, whoa, that was amazing! He died already. Like it was.
Were you like dead?
I went unconscious.
Like,
oh, okay.
Okay.
Right away. Not dead. Like I went unconscious. I mean, it's a level 1 character.
That's when you die very easily. When you take like 12 hit points and you die.
Exactly. Yeah. So like we had I think a blood cleric or a war cleric, something like that. That immediately his whole life mission was like to make sure I didn't die. So like I got healed like right after that, and then he used blood, like whatever weird blood magic he had, to create like a sphere of like shield around me, because I thought I was doing all this on my own, I was like, yeah, thinking I'm like deflecting arrows and like not getting hit, and like refusing to give anyone else credit for the fact that I'm not dead right now.
Sorry.
So that was the first, I'd say 20 minutes of the first sense of initiative in my first D&D session.
That's crazy. That's hilarious, though.
Yeah.
How long did you play that character for then?
That we played. I got him to level 5.
5? Okay, that's like a solid
level 3, level 5.
It's like a full campaign usually for a level 1 to level
5. Regular sessions died down as campaigns do.
Yeah.
With adults having other lives, and then we realized he was weird, so we agreed not to meet with him anymore. Which is it like it was a type of weird that was like not affecting us, but like putting ourselves in a place to be affected by it seemed like a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm sure it must be hard. Like, I can't imagine, like, I don't know. I'm kind of like a golden retriever. I tend to get along with almost everyone, but like, there's definitely a handful of people that I could think like, oh, if I just met them out of the blue and they're like, let's run a game, I bet they would drive me completely insane and it would not be fun. And you really do. The whole point of this game is to find people that you jive with.
See, so that was we jived with him on playing D&D.
Yeah.
We had red flags as an individual in lifestyle or priority outside of the game.
Right, right.
If this ever leaks into the game, we're fucked.
Right.
And it increasingly made us feel not safe. Not because in game he was doing anything, but because the conversations we had, or with either him or other people in our circle that happened to also magically know him,
right,
was like, oh, this isn't good. So that died down, and then it was a circle of not getting past level 6, of like starting a character, having it either the DM suck and walking away from the table. Or having people's schedules get in the way, or the first time I got to level 8 was because my partner was kind enough to run a campaign that started at level 8, and then we shoehorned that because we wanted to finish the campaign before we left when we were moving from Nashville to Rhode Island, because we had not yet to complete one. And my partner wanted to DM something before we left. So that was like two birds with one stone. And that was fun. And then, that was my thought process.
What is your, after that, do you like playing Rogue, or what are you playing like now? Like, what are you kind of more... Is that more your style?
I think so. I think now that I've played, I'm in the phase of, if I'm playing a system I've played before, I'm exploring stuff I've never done.
Right.
But I always build my characters from narrative first, and then look at how it maximizes in fighting. So right. I min-max my character's personality, basically, and then worry. So I tend to have like a lot of low constitution characters, or
Why?
Why? Because
you're a healthy guy. You'd think you'd want a character that's a bit healthy.
I'm not looking to play me.
No, I know, but like, hit points are important.
I tend to like, I'll have like wizards whose highest stat is Dex, but they're and the second highest is Intelligence. Gotcha. So like, because I use the dump stats, the lowest 3 stats of my character, as how I in logic articulate what their personality is in the world.
Yes.
So if I look at that first, I look at are they brave? Are they scared of things?
Right.
Are they Are they learned through experience or learned through book reading? What experience do they have in life that would allow them to keep learning?
Right.
And why, if any reason, would they know how to fight?
It's interesting you say that, because that first character you made spent his whole time inside, but he had a high wisdom and a low intelligence. I kind of think it would have been the opposite.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. It was the other way around.
Oh, it was the other way around. Okay.
Low wisdom.
I was like, okay, because that makes sense.
Yeah. It allowed him to, if he investigated, see the world really well, but he had really low passive perception.
Yeah, because he's used to sticking his nose in a book the whole time.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
and now he's just, everything is wondrous. So he gets distracted really easily.
I'm a similar, not in the stat front, but like when I try a new system, I do kind of the opposite. I go with the dumb brute every time. If I don't know the system, I'm like, I'm gonna be low intelligence. I'm gonna be there to watch and learn the system and be the muscle when I need to be. That's my strategy of new systems, but I didn't mean, I just wanted to clarify, because I was like, wow, this character sounds like
it was the other way around. I'm sorry.
No, that's totally cool.
He was book learned, no experience. That's how I looked
absolutely.
At it. Yeah.
I like to do it can be of various different ways. Usually my character development comes from me looking at a subclass and being like, how would this person have gotten here? What is the reason that they became, like, I wanted to play a I read about wild magic sorcerer, and I was like, what would be the fun wild magic sorcerer? How about a halfling? Not just a halfling, a 12-year-old halfling that got extremely dangerous magic because he like
powers.
Yeah, because he like wandered into a place that he was told not to go to because that's what kids do, and got somewhat so like. That's my mentality of when I do it, is like, what would bring them? Like, I do a College of Swords bard. I was like, ooh, College of Swords bard, like a juggler, like a sword juggler. That sounds cool. So I made this but I do like that. And the dump stat thing is very crucial too, because I also have a couple characters, like a wizard with like a -3 charisma. So right away, I'm like, I mean, he's not going to know how to talk to anybody, barely, just super, like, I'll wait a good 2 minutes into the conversation with a new PC before I just interrupt him to say my name. I'll just wait. Yep. I wait, like, he's like, yeah, and we need you to do this. And I'll just go, hi, I'm Milton. Like, just right. So that, like, level of awkwardness comes from those dump stats. So I fully agree with you with that. Building the personality around the stats definitely makes sense.
Yeah, and it gives me... It makes it not random. As someone who loves improv, it gives me the skeleton with which to bounce things off of, without breaking rules. So yeah, when I'm playing, basically if I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons, at this point, I'm at the point where I'm trying new stuff. I still build my characters in that mold of like building the narrative or the personality first. But I'm like trying different magic users, or like trying to I multi-class for the first time recently. But when I play a new system, I default to a rogue style class because it's how I inquisitively approach that type of adventure in my brain. It is the type of character. It is whenever I play like an open world video game, I default to that as well. It is the type of character I embody when I work out. So it's the string to my actual personality.
I'm picturing you like running around, but like hiding behind something, doing a couple push-ups, then moving to another room.
Yeah.
Stealthy exercise.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. That's one class I haven't even gone full into. I've become a huge fan of multi-classing, mostly because of another past guest. Zach Katz has a podcast called Fantasize Me. Shout out to Zach Katz, where he'll take a character from a movie or something and make them a D&D.
I love that podcast.
Yeah. So like his multi-classes are redonkulous, like 3, 4, but like by the time he gets to a certain point, like he has this crazy, I mean, a lot of it's kind of based on the combat, but a lot of it is the role playing too, like how to just quickly, take 1 or 2 levels in a rogue, and all of a sudden you can get expertise in multiple things and just like these quick tricks. I do, like, my DM kind of goes on the front where it needs to make sense for the character, so that does also kind of go in that. Like, my College of Swords bard is trying to run away from the terrible things he's done, so he recently did multi-class into rogue. He also almost died by getting up front and personal with someone. He's like, I should try doing the stealthy thing like those. So, like, it does make sense, but it can really, like, change the game. And it also, like, I don't know, I think if you're gonna play from, like, start to finish, it might be fun to just stick with that one class. But, like, sometimes if it's like a 1 or 2 session thing, I'll just throw together, especially if it's like a one shot. If it's gonna be like a dungeon crawly one shot, I'm like, I'm just gonna create a lethal multi-class. And
Yeah.
I haven't done Pathfinder, but I know that's like Pathfinder's bread and butter. But it can be done in 5th edition too. I'm sure it's not to the extent of Pathfinder, but there are ways.
That is my homebrew world idea.
Yeah.
Is one built on levels of class earned through story experience. So you start
that's awesome.
as what I call it level 0, but you start as your race stats and like a villager, which is what, like, if you walk into a random village and like stab the baker, you're stabbing a level 0 character.
Yes.
So you take those stats and whatever, like, before the inciting incident takes place, personalities and traits, and the inciting incident launches you into your hero's journey, which is a collective, like, people that already know each other. They're like on this adventure now. They're lost, whatever tragedy has struck, and the skills they're using to stay alive are directly tied to whether they can or cannot, or what levels of stuff they earn. So, like, you're not gonna. No one technically in that. No one gets to be a sorcerer because sorcerer is an innate magical power.
I was just gonna say that's the only thing that eliminates the sorcerer.
But you can be any. You can be a warlock. You can be a wizard. You can be a druid. Like, along the way.
Sure.
If you're like wandering along, like, lost in the woods and like grabbing mushrooms to eat, and one of them happens to make you really high one day, you become a druid. Like, and it can either be like a linear path where, like, once you find this nook in the party, like, that's how you, as a relied on teammate, that's the skills that you build, or narratively, like, you get a bunch of, like, average Joes that are like, what is it? Good at everything, master of none, or whatever. Like, or jack of all trades.
I have a couple questions.
Everyone's build is different because of circumstance and story. And then you're limited in D&D. You have to have pre-required physical stats to multi-class. So, like, in order to be a wizard, you need a bare minimum intelligence level.
Right.
In order, most of the magic stuff has it. So, like, if you're at level 1 through 3 and your intelligence is low, you can't yet learn magic. But down the road, as you level up generically, your intelligence will also, in theory, could go up, and thus get you to the point where you could learn magic as a wizard.
So there's a chance that you could be a wizard but not know any magic?
No.
Oh.
You would have to have both put points into intelligence as you're generically leveling up.
Are you doing stats while they're commoners, or are you rolling stats once they?
No, you roll their basic stats.
Okay. Because
but
what if, like,
that kind of predetermines your fate on what you can and cannot multiclass a little bit?
Well, it kind of determines what you can be in general. Like, if you roll an 8 and a 10 for strength and dexterity, and narratively you're starting like, I always wanted to be a fighter, and then, like, you're like, that's not going to work for you. Also, you can't. You need the 13, I think, at least to be. Oh no, that's for multiclassing.
In order to be a class of something, you need the 13 in that skill.
I have a thought though for the sorcerer. I have a thought.
Oh, go.
Because the sorcerer. Yes, you can be born with it, but you can also just be, like, given it, or there can just be some sort of an event. So, like, the difference, like a warlock, you met with someone usually specifically and made a deal. You could put some sort of a bait in the story of like a stone or some sort of magical item or some sort of magical something that if one of the characters decides to take, boom, just like you wake up the next day and you like feel slightly different, and like and then they start to just all of a sudden they have these powers.
Yeah.
It's not a deal, it's not a contract, so they're not a warlock, they're a sorcerer. They got this innate magic out of nowhere. So
Yep.
that's definitely
That's how you do it. Yeah. Every so many levels, you do have the ability to add points to your base stats, though.
Okay.
So in theory, if you're keeping an eye out for stuff you're low in and might need later on, you could build up, say, the dex to be a fighter character. But that road is a longer fought battle. You just got to be more aware of it. And then with the wizard, it would be a mix of your intelligence getting high enough and crossing someone that can teach you. Like you can't just look at a spell book and know how to cast spells.
Right. Yeah, the wizard thing definitely makes a bit more sense of like the narratively you would need to have that initial. I do like the idea. I like the idea of that we're like kind of more of an open scenario where you kind of go for your path. I feel like it's a little tough because someone might have something in mind and start, but then that's the character.
But then you assign your so it's kind of like assigning your character a sense of fate mixed in with their free will, right? You're giving them, you get the numbers to assign your character, and you get to choose what you put them in. So you're kind of realigning the stars in what is the most plausible option for them. But when you're narratively playing them, they have the free will to decide they don't want to do that anymore and like go in a different direction.
I feel like you would need a couple, like the way to go into this would be like a couple session zeros.
I'm really big on that anyways, as a DM.
I haven't really done too many session zeros where it's like actually me and like I've done one where we like build characters, but I haven't done too many. Usually if we're doing a one shot, like I do like to have a little backstory, so we'll just like talk about it in the chat and like what's your character, how did we meet? Because usually one shots you're like you met, you're a party, you've been a party for some time or something. But like having those where you are this person, you were born into this. I think it also humbles that mentality of like sometimes you make like a level 1 fighter and you're like I'm a badass and you're like no you're not. No. you're a squishy person who just got their first sword and you're like you're learning a few things here or there, because that's always like the initial, especially for newer players. You're like I'm a hero, right? And you're like no, you're on the track to become a hero. Being a hero means you overcome adversity. Yeah, how the spider will kill you instantly.
People tell other people that it happened.
What was that? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Being a hero requires overcoming adversity, and then people being around and spreading the rumor of it taking place.
Yeah. That's cool. All right, we are coming up at about 43 minutes. I'm trying to keep it a little bit between 45 to an hour. So I would like to get some of your favorite stories of your time through tabletop gaming. That's what we're all about here.
My favorite stories.
Yeah, favorite moments. Things other than your We got the jumping off the ship and almost dying instantly.
In my current campaign,
sure.
Or one of my I am in D&D. I am playing a coward sorcerer.
Okay.
He's a high dex, second highest intelligence, very squishy constitution to make it all work.
Wait, second highest is intelligence?
Or charisma.
Oh, charisma. Oh, okay.
Like his second highest stat is his spellcasting stat.
Sure. That's fine.
And then, but he's super slippery and like runs away a lot, and because his powers are innate, his backstory is basically a character being neurodiverse in structured learning, and being told they're stupid or not understanding, like, why can't you learn? So as like a child or as a teenager, as the powers manifested, he was sent to the Wizard Academy and could not retain the manner in which they taught magic, because he was extremely powerful and could just like make fire protrude from his hands. But if you told him to like write it out for someone else to do, he would never be able to do it. So he's exploded a couple labs, got expelled from a couple learning academies, and all this time as he practices magic, he does get stronger, but he just doesn't know how to control it. So he's a wild magic sorcerer who has a home-brewed wild magic surge ratio.
Cool.
That is built on the spells he has learned, but doesn't know how to tap into which spell he's casting at which time. So he has like on a roll of a d20 anytime he uses magic. From a 16 to 20, he casts the spell he means to cast. From a 5 through a 15, he casts one of the spells he happens to know, and from 1 through 5, it's a wild magic surge.
Is that's every single time?
Every time he uses magic, whether it's reactionary or on purpose.
That's rough. Do you add anything to it or no? Just straight. Like, do you add his charisma to it?
Yeah, I'm like, it's still no. It's a straight roll. It's a straight roll, just to figure out which of the things, because he doesn't have control over it. Right. He can just manifest power, and but he has been playing lately. He's been taught, and in being a coward, he's a magical being that people tend to like use for quest. But he doesn't like that he's being used for quest because he doesn't really trust his magic. So like in battle and stuff, he runs up and hits things with sticks to put off using magic as long as possible, and then runs in the opposite direction and cowers in the bushes. Narratively, I've loved playing him because he's on the verge of multi-classing into a rogue,
right? Because
he spent so much time hitting things with sticks and hiding in bushes, and he has stopped trying to get better at magic and controlling the magic, and he's less scared of using it, but he's not scared of it being random anymore, which means he'll use it, but he's not the power of his magic is no longer growing. The control of it is. And while that's happening, he was taught by his group, when he feels fear, to run in the direction of it. So he has the same response. He goes, "Oh my God!" And instead of hightailing it away, he hightails it to whatever's in front of him. Right. And that has built up a dive, duck, dodge mentality that is leading to him getting a level in Rogue. So it's the internal story arc that character is going through that I really, really like.
What level of sorcerer are you?
Level 9.
Level 9 sorcerer?
Yeah, we started at level 8.
Oh, okay.
And we leveled up a couple. We might be level 10, maybe level 11. Whatever. He leveled up a couple times in sorcerer, in campaign, and narratively, it was like, this doesn't make sense anymore because he's for him to get more powerful, it makes sense for him to like narratively have the wild magic chart become less volatile, not for the spells to be more powerful. Gotcha. So that was where that came from. Yeah.
No, that's cool.
That's been a lot of fun. Story-wise, I also played in a adventuring tournament game that was fun that ran over the summer. I played a multi-classed Leonin.
Oh,
that was part sorcerer, part monk.
Cool. Are you a big fan of sorcerer?
And it was basically barehanded or elemental powers in my mind. Was like, so he's either like up, like punching him in the face repeatedly, or instead of shooting a bow, he throws like magic fire at you. And the first, I thought it was a PvP tournament, so I built him to like survive that environment. Then it turned out to be a survival adventuring story. So I had no backpack, I had no weapons. I was just in the forest it was played with my partner, and they did not enjoy each other very much at first because of that. And there was making sure you hunt for food and like drink your water and like just don't die from wilderness exposure. Right. And he was not built for that at all. So the fact that he survived it was amazing. And he had his backstory was that he was a king who had inherited the kingdom from the death of his father, but he himself had not been trained to be king yet. So the village was in uproar and sent him on this survival tournament to prove his worth. And this is what he was told. And halfway through, he realized they sent him here to die. Like it was instead of murdering him because they didn't think he was a bad person, they were just like, we can't afford you to literally be in power because you're going to accidentally like have us all killed. Right. So they sent him off to basically never return without telling him that and giving him a sense of purpose to get through the tournament. And along the way, like halfway through, he realized, oh, I'm here to die. And he decided he doesn't want to die. So he learned all the tools of survival that are necessary in like battle and whatnot, to have empathy for like sending his armies out if he has to do that. And in the very last point of the survival tournament, it turned out it was a dragon. The forest they're in was the land of a giant dragon that every year had this tournament, so he didn't have to hunt for food. And we narratively fought the dragon a lot. Most of the group was unconscious at the end of the battle and were on death saves. And it was me and one other player. And the crazy thing was that it was a tournament that you played in duos. So I played with my partner and like a DM. And then there were other duos separately on sessions moving through the forest apart from us. And then the finale was everyone popping out at the same point, going, "Whoa, what's going on?" Which was really cool. So we're at that point. We've dealt with the dragon enough so like it flies to hide into a lower cavern area. We're battle stricken. Everyone's looking around, and half our party was trying to not fight the dragon, or not fight. No, we were brought to fight each other to weaken each other so the dragon could eat us easily. And we refused to fight each other. And the dragon got mad, so we fought the dragon, and then the dragon ran away. And we're sitting there just like covered in blood and soot. Yeah. And me and this other person, and this one character NPC that comes bounding through the wood that was like a giant bipedal hippo character who was super jolly, and I had met and then terrorized for a little bit, showing the first time I'd ever shown anger at anyone. And I was asking, like, he was there to like also want to like hunt the dragon, like that's what he was there for. And he comes up and sees everyone stricken on the ground, and me and this other person are just like sitting in the dirt, just like exhausted. And he's like, "Oh, you look like you and your troop could use some healing." And he hands us both like superior or potions of healing or whatever. And instead of like handing them to our team, who was lying on the ground withering, we cheers and like chugged them ourselves.
Right.
Because I had taken 1 point of damage the entire battle.
Oh, you rude man.
And that was the end of the game.
It was the end of the game. That is funny though.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, cool, thank you. And then your buddies are like, oh, what the hell?
Yeah, they're stable, in stable condition, just in pain, and we're like, I broke a nail, I need this.
That's
and then
so
it was
funny.
fade to black. There was also a point where like that same character like jumped off the cliff to like go hunt the dragon, because we're like, that's where the dragon went. Yeah. And he rolled a horrible jump and ended up accidentally hanging himself on the forest.
Oh my.
Lines. What?
Oh my.
Yeah, and it was so random that the person that I was RPing with at the time went, "What just happened?" And I think he just hung himself. And he went, "What?" No, and out of character was like, "That really just happened?" So that was fun. Narratively, it wasn't that big of it was after the story ended, but it was the moment of like cracking the beer open with like your team was beautiful to me.
Yeah, I think the that's always nice to do, like after the session closes, to still like have a little bit of role play after, especially because a lot of the times it always ends like after a brutal fight or something. But thanks for sharing. Those are that was hilarious. And thanks for joining me today.
Awesome. I can keep going if you want. You can snippet parts out.
No, I got to. I have some things I got to do later, and I appreciate it. Why don't you run through all of the things where people can find you and stuff like that? Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Julian Loomis. You can find me on the internet under Everyday Superhero Headquarters or Everyday Superhero Cast. And I am a nerdy wellness communicator. I dabble in the TTRPG space on the internet sphere. She might see me pop up in games and shows every so often. I just, for the first time, played Pathfinder on. I joined Party of Two as a guest cast member. That was really exciting. I did that last night. I got done at 1 a.m. For the first time ever. So if you look for either Everyday Superhero Headquarters or Everyday Superhero Cast, you can find me on the Twitters, the Instagrams, the YouTubes, and my podcast. You should totally hang out and listen to.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Cool. And for me, thanks everyone for listening. This has been You Had to Be There, a D&D storytelling podcast where I interview different tabletop RPG players and we share fun stories and knowledge. I am also a stand-up comedian, which we were talking a little bit earlier about bandwidth. So I'm going to be releasing a couple more episodes of this over the next couple months probably, and then I'm going to be taking a break just because I need to make sure that I don't go insane by doing too many things. Stand-up is busy, and I got to go with, some things like that. But I definitely will continue to support this community, and we'll probably bring this back for another. Maybe I'll start doing it in seasons, just because like things get.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Just do like every few months or so, just do a couple episodes or something like that. Because I love this. I do love doing this. I love talking to all my tabletop friends. Tabletop community is one of the best communities out there, and I will. I mean,
when you're also battling the comedy community, like that's a.
Well, I think that's why I like this community, because this community is the comedy community is good, but like they're not as loving and friendly.
Because you're everyone's competition.
It depends. Yeah. Well, we try it. We're steering that in the right direction. We try that
That's
to
fair.
we try to not have it be that way. But
I forgot to bring up. I got on stage after like 2 weeks after our episode.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah. I started doing open mics because I was hosting a panel at Kineticon, and I hadn't done public speaking in like 3 years, and I wanted to get used to the sensation of eyeballs staring at me without reaction. So,
Yeah.
so it wasn't so much about like the jokes being amazing, but like having confidence in the jokes that I was telling, regardless of what the people were doing.
If you ever try stand up, and I mean, it takes a long time to get good at it. It takes a really long time to get great at it. The beginning, if you can stand up there for 5 to 7 minutes and try to make people laugh and stand up there in total silence, you are as hard and as strong as anyone else, because you can overcome anything. Because it's one of the worst feelings
in the entire world.
It's one of the worst feelings in the world.
Yep.
Than to
What
be
was
like,
really
I'm going to
cool-
go up there and make these people laugh.
What was really cool was the process worked. Like I felt I had confidence in the material I'd writing. Like I had grown as a writer, but I found myself having, even though because it was a room full of comedians and one person drinking a beer, so getting comedians to react is always an extra bonus. But you can't base it on outward signs of laughter, because laughter is contagious. Like if there's one person that you have to make outwardly laugh, they're feeling really fucking self-conscious right then. Mm-hmm. So having the faith in like what the story or the joke I'm telling was what I was working on. And then I got to the con and everyone laughed at all the jokes I had written during that period of time at the con, which felt really cool.
Yeah, that's great, man. Happy to hear it. Cool. All right, we're going to get out of here. If you want to follow me on Instagram for comedy dates and stuff, all my links are in my description. I got a link tree. I got all that stuff. Cool. Thanks, everybody. This has been You Had to Be There with Julian from the Everyday Superhero Podcast. Bye, everyone.
Bye.